I've always loved portable video game systems. All the way back to the Game Boy, I spent many a night huddled under the blanket in my bed, secretly scoring extra playtime away from my parents. Even once I was an adult, it wasn't unusual for me to get a few extra minutes in with my favorite games before bedtime. As the lines between home consoles and portables began to blur a bit, I found myself enjoying them even more, with Sony's PlayStation Portable being of particular interest. This little beauty could pump out some impressive visuals, and it was absolutely chocked full of features to explore. It made its way out to retail in 2004 after Sega had gone third party, and boy did Sega lavish it with numerous releases. A library of close to 100 titles with all factors considered. While looking through that lot, I found some good stuff, so I decided to do my very own Sega Top 10 on the PSP. Before we begin, it's important to note that I am not a die-hard soccer fan. I don't enjoy music-based rhythm games or dating simulators, and my days of meandering through endless Japanese adventure and RPGs are long past me. This is my personal list, and it's just for fun, so sit back, have a good time, and try not to stress too much. I hope you guys enjoy the show. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on honorable mentions, but I do have a few I want to spotlight. Full Auto 2 Battle Lines made its way to the PSP and is absolute chaos. Take to the streets with your souped up car death and lay waste to everything that moves. The original Full Auto on the 360 was a better game, but this one has its charms, especially on the go. Another one that may interest some of you is Crazy Taxi Fare Wars. This is an amalgamation of the first two games in the series, complete with mini-games, multiplayer, and the different maps. It has some performance issues and it loses its original soundtrack, but it's still good fun on the go. For you Initial D fans, the PSP had Street Stage, which was based on Initial D Arcade Stage version 3. It looks great and retains the same style of game fans know and love. Finally, I want to point out that the PSP has a dedicated community of folks doing English translations. Be sure to investigate these, as there are some real gems in there. We start our journey at number 10, Sega Genesis Collection, or in the case of you non-US folks, Sega Mega Drive Collection. This contains a bunch of fantastic 16-bit Sega releases, as well as some unlockable Golden Era arcade games. Digital Eclipse handled the development duties and did a fair job with the emulation. The mix of games should offer up something for everybody. There's arcade games like the Golden Axe titles, the Phantasy Star games for the RPG people, and of course some Shinobi for anyone with proper taste in games. Sprinkled around that lot is your usual Echoes, Sonics, Vector Man, and the odd arcade port. If your PSP isn't modded, it's a great way to get a group of games together with a simple interface and a few cool extras. In 2007 brought us Afterburner Black Falcon, developed by a small company called Planet Moon Studios. This is a direct sequel to the arcade game Afterburner Climax, but since this was a home exclusive, it has a deeper story, cinematics, objectives, items to pick up in the field, and gameplay that is designed to last longer. The visuals are smooth, detailed, and there are a number of different environments to battle across. The best part of this package are the licensed upgradable planes. You can upgrade your weapons and your Afterburner to be even more potent in combat. Plus you can customize the look of your plane. If you have a friend, you can take to the skies in both co-op and competitive dogfights. While it still retains the arcade feel and is quite easy to pick up and play, the combat is more fleshed out and the stage is far longer than what you usually encounter in an Afterburner title. It wasn't a bad look for the franchise, and I would have loved to have seen another one built on top of it. Alien Syndrome on the PSP is an action RPG with a bunch of weapons, customizations, and up to 4-player co-op. Released in 2007 and developed by Totally Games, it stands as a sequel to the original 1980s arcade edition, and I had a blast playing it. The polygon visuals and overhead perspective hold up well as a portable release, and there's a bunch of stages to play. The pace is very much explore and discover, so the protracted design of the original arcade has been nicely expanded here. The sheer amount of weapon options is unreal, and you have a choice of going in guns blazing or taking the fight close, with some potent melee options. It didn't review well, but I always thought it was a hell of a lot better than many gave it credit for. It was kind of a mix of Metroid and Diablo, a sci-fi adventure that didn't take itself seriously and gave you plenty to see and do for a fair price. With a bigger budget and an improved presentation, this could have been a solid, full-fledged console release on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 that may have garnered a sequel or two. Instead, it was buried under a mountain of releases on the Nintendo Wii and the PSP, forgotten by the masses. Good old Virtua Tennis showed up a couple of times on the PSP, and it doesn't matter which one you play. The first is 2005's Virtua Tennis World Tour, which was an exclusive for the platform. It was developed by Sumo Digital and has a number of real-life tennis stars, up to 4 players, minigames, and create a player mode, where you can train your athlete to become world champion. There is also Virtua Tennis 3, which was released in 2007 and expands on everything from World Tour. More real-life players, more training options, more match options, more everything to make it even better. The visuals are fantastic, the gameplay genre-defining, and you'll be hard-pressed to find a better portable version of this sport. The pickup and play quality is off the charts, something that makes it a perfect PSP companion.
To serve.
I was a fan of the 8 and 16-bit Phantasy Star games, but when it moved over to that online multiplayer style, I just stopped caring. It wasn't that the new action RPG style was off-putting, it was more a case that I wanted to play the vast array of first and third-person shooters making the rounds at the time. It wasn't until I sat down with the Phantasy Star Portable series that I really began to appreciate what these games were all about. The PSP titles were based on Phantasy Star Universe, now with more characters, a new story, and a ton of extras. It still has the multiplayer mode if that was your thing, but this is perfectly playable alone, and it has multiple endings to bring you back for more. There are 3 of these releases on the PSP that started in 2008, developed by Sonic Team, Sega CS3, and Alpha System. If you've never had the pleasure, it's basically a hack-and-slash action RPG with a bunch of customization options. It's a great way to get into these games even now, plus they look and sound nearly as good as the console counterparts. Phantasy Star 2 Infinity has a load of new content but was initially released in Japan only. If you want to play it now, be sure to find the English translation that makes it fully accessible. The Like a Dragon series showed up on the PSP 2 times in 2010 and 2012, both games being similar to the original PlayStation 2 releases. These were side stories, however, both translated as Black Panther, Like a Dragon New Chapter. You play as Tetsuo Yukio, a nobody that makes a big mistake, pisses off some Yakuza, and then must fight his way to freedom. The gameplay here is more like a one-on-one UFC mixed martial arts fighter than other games in the series, and that gives it a bit of a unique feel. As you'd expect, there's lots of story to unravel, mini games to play, and you can even earn money through part-time jobs. Initially, these two games were only released in a few Asian regions, and as of this video, have never been officially localized elsewhere. Fortunately, the great PSP community has given both games an English translation, and now you too can enjoy these Yakuza side adventures. Though similar in many areas, they have a feel and atmosphere that sets it apart from the mainline series. I didn't discover Crush on the PSP until some years after its debut. It launched in 2007 and was developed by Zoe Mode, who also created the 3DS sequel. This platform puzzler takes the idea of turning your various 3D perspectives into two-dimensional equivalents. It radically changes where you can go and what you can interact with. You play the role of Danny, who is inside his own dreams and who is trying to overcome his crippling fears to get a good night's rest. The opening levels do a good job of explaining the gameplay before it cuts you loose and leaves this bizarre world open to you. You'll need some problem-solving skills, a bit of trial and error, and maybe even a touch of luck to overcome this nightmare. It genuinely is one of the PSP's most unique games. The surreal visuals fit the narrative well, and it's got a ton of replayability. I remember how excited I was when I found out Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast was coming to the PSP. The idea of this incredible driving game in the palm of your hands was tantalizing, and when that became a reality in 2006, you can bet I was there to give it a spin. It came with 13 cars, 30 tracks, wireless multiplayer, gorgeous visuals, and one kick-ass soundtrack. It has the vast majority of the appeal you'll find in the arcade and console versions, right down to the fantastic drift-heavy gameplay and choose-your-own-path design. The only area the PSP edition falters in a bit is the performance, which does fluctuate far more than the other ports available. This may be a deal-breaker for some because Outrun 2 was such a smooth experience, and that's a big part of its appeal. I was just so happy to get this on the go I didn't care much. I still played the heck out of it and consider it a fine racing addition to your PSP library. In 2010, Sega released Valkyria Chronicles 2 for the PSP, a direct sequel to the original turn-based strategy RPG. The story revolves around a civil war and the students at a military academy caught in its wake. The gameplay is really cool as it mixes the idea of a turn-based tactics game with a third-person shooter. You move your troops about the battlefield where you can attack, take cover, and outsmart the enemy. There's loads of missions to undertake, relationships to cultivate, and customizations. There's more classes here that give you more options on the battlefield than the first game, and the story feels much more lighthearted than before. But don't think for a second that this is a pushover. Some of these missions are no joke and can wreck your squad again and again. You do have the ability to team up in multiplayer and get some help, which can really add to the enjoyment in this one. For those that love the series, Part 3 made its way to the PSP as well. Originally, it was only released in Japan, but has since seen an English fan translation. These games were not popular in the West at the time, but I really do recommend you give them a try. They are deep, engrossing adventures that are well worth playing.
Moving out! You're through!
That leaves our number one Sega game on the PSP as 2007 Sega Rally Revo. This was developed by Bugbear as a companion release to the console versions of the game, but it had some important differences. First, the gameplay is wildly adjusted here. The handling feels heavier and the track layouts are not the same. This gives the portable edition quite its own unique experience, bolstered by the multiplayer that can include 4 people. The visuals hold up nicely and it has a checkpoint-based time attack to practice in before you move on to the championship mode. You get a choice of cars from real-world automakers like Toyota, BMW, Ford, and many others. There's even some classic rally cars thrown in for your retro pleasure. This version of the game did not get the praise it deserved back then. The console edition sold very poorly, and that likely hurt any chance the PSP release had for an audience. Give it a shot if you like racing games, however. It's got a solid core and provides a lot of fun for an off-road racer on the go. There we go, my personal top 10 Sega games for the Sony PSP. As many of you may have noticed, the visuals in this episode were very sharp for a low-resolution portable screen from 2004. That's because for the capture I used the emulator, PPSSPP, running at 1080p. These games still look great on original hardware, but for my purposes here, I wanted to test the emulator out and get the best image possible. The good news is if you do not have a PSP, these games performed great in emulation. It was easy to set up and I had no issues using an Xbox One controller with it. The PSP really was a fantastic portable game system, and that sucker sold over 80 million units in its lifetime. Sony supported it for 10 years, which meant it ended up with nearly 2,000 games in its library. There's a lot to unpack there. And with mods and emulation being so easy these days, it's never been a better time to explore it. I mentioned earlier that the homebrew community is quite active on the PSP, and it has many English translations as well. If you enjoy RPG and adventure titles, there's a lot more available than the 10 games I focused on here. I was a big fan of the Sony Vita as well, but I far preferred the PSP experience. It was loaded with unforgettable games and one of my favorite handheld systems ever released. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.